Very good. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to, uh, to join everyone, and I hope you get some benefit out of the presentation. I will share just a quick picture of that's me there and who we are, and our website is www.dora-partners.com. And you can see there also my email address. If you have any questions that you want to follow up with or what have you, I'm more than happy to provide responses. With having said all that, we'll get right into the presentation. So just I'm going to provide a little bit of a primer because not everybody knows these facts, but many probably will. But it's always good to understand what I call the gas turbine value chain. So in other words, where are gas turbines typically used? And typically I look at it from the perspective of 4 different value chain streams. There's the oil and gas production segment where gas turbines are used to support gas and oil production. They're used in gas and oil transmission. They're used in the refining and petrochemical, and including LNG, liquefied natural gas. And then, and that's all what I call the oil and gas sector of the economy. And then gas turbines transition from there over to what some people call power generation, but I call electric power utility, or EPU sector. And of course, gas turbines are used there quite a bit as well. And that's pretty much the total breadth of where industrial gas turbines are used. Down below there, you'll see I've actually got some pie charts that share the size of the gas turbines and what percent of that different vertical value stream utilization is. So for example, in the gas and oil production value stream, sector of the value stream, 65% of all gas turbines that have ever been sold are sized between 1 and 20 megawatts. 34% for gas turbines sized between 20 and 100 megawatts. And then finally, only 1% of the gas turbines in that upstream segment would be 100 megawatts or larger. And you can see the data is very different depending on which value stream you're looking at. You can see midstream, so you're talking gas pipelines, oil pipelines, and even some storage for withdrawal. That 70% is for the small gas turbines, and a fairly large segment of 30% is for gas turbines between 20 and 100 megawatts. And in fact, really most of those, that 30% is between 20 and 35 megawatts even. And you can see there's virtually no large or jumbo sized gas turbines in the midstream sector. Downstream, you see another mix. You see downstream, a very large proportion of those gas turbines are sized between 20 and 100 megawatts. And then as you transition over to the electric power utility, or as I said, some people call power generation, it's a much more diverse mix. And that's really because there's so much different types of customers that have electric power needs, there's different sizes driven primarily by the type of customer and what their specific needs are. That's why you see such a dramatic variation in the types of sizes of gas turbines used in that sector. I'd like to take just a moment to explain how Dora Partners looks at segmentation of the gas turbine industry. But a little bit of a commercial. We actually produce a 10-year forecast for gas turbines, how many are going to be ordered by the different gas turbine models. So globally, there's around 90 different gas turbine models in the industrial gas turbine marketplace. And we have a forecast for all 90 gas turbines for the next 10 years. And that full report can be, in fact, not only do we provide a detailed forecast, but we provide a very detailed report. And that can be, you can either go to our website, www.dora-partners.com, or you can go to the gasturbineworld.com website and buy it there. And you can see in the green circle there the link for where you can find that. So you can get it either way. So, but just a quick way of how we segment it. We actually look at the market and segment it by probably 20 different ways. But here I'm showing you, I'll call it 6 primary ways. So we look at it by sector. And what I mean by sector is the electric power utility, the oil and gas sector, and we even look at it from a marine sector because there are a fair number of industrial gas turbines that are used in the marine sector. Now, why do we call that electric power utility sector EPU instead of power generation? The reason for that is go over to the right and look at the segment we call applications. And really there are only 2 different applications for gas turbines. One of them is mechanical drive. So you have gas turbine that drives a compressor or a pump or some other mechanical device, or you could see gas turbines that drive a generator to produce electricity. And I call that power generation. And the reason for the differentiation in the words electric power utility versus power generation is because in oil and gas, it's possible that you could see gas turbines used for either generating electricity, power generation, or mechanical drive. So that's the main reason why we try to differentiate electric power utility versus power generation terminology. We also look at the market from a technology perspective, and we classify all gas turbines lying in either of 3 different segments: heavy duty or heavy frame, aeroderivative, in other words, gas turbines that were initially designed for flying, but they've been changed in some way to serve the industrial market. And then there's light industrial. And then we look at it from a geographic perspective, what regions and countries will the gas turbines be deployed or have been deployed? What type of cycle are the gas turbines used? Are they used in a simple cycle form, combined cycle, or cogeneration? And then finally, we look at it from what I call a topography perspective. So are the gas turbines used onshore or are they used offshore? And we can either further differentiate that by are they used upstream, midstream, or downstream. So it can be very complex, but it's important if you're serving the industrial gas turbine marketplace to really truly understand where all these gas turbines are used, how they're used, what type of applications, what kind of technologies, where they're located, so on and so forth. And we are able to do that not only for what has been deployed, but what will be deployed over the coming 10 years. I'll share some of that information with you now as a little bit of a teaser. So let's just look at what's actually happened historically in the marketplace. And it's not actually a very pretty situation in terms of new unit orders. You can see that back in 2014, there were well over 800 gas turbines that were ordered in 2014. Or yes, around 800 were ordered in 2014, but the number's down below 400 now. And so since 2012, gas turbine orders are down about 39%, and on a unit basis, they're down 65%. So a very dramatic reduction in orders for gas turbines. And even last year, there was the market was down 18% on unit orders, but slightly up on megawatt orders of about 23%. And that's really being driven by the fact that OEMs such as General Electric and Mitsubishi and Siemens and Saldo, they've all been introducing new, very large jumbo-sized units that are being used for what I would call coal and nuclear plant offset activity. So that's why the megawatt orders are up while unit orders were down. But we track over 39,000 gas turbines that are deployed. And that's an important thing to think about, because while the orders for gas turbines are down on a new unit basis, there's still a lot of gas turbines that are deployed already and being utilized. So if you're providing products or services that support the industrial gas turbine market, there's still a very substantial fleet of gas turbines out there. And so there is still a very large and strong demand for supporting that marketplace. And we actually have a very detailed forecast for the aftermarket as well that we can share with you if you so desire. I'm going to move on from this to providing a little bit more detail. So if you look at the deployed fleet, as I said, there's over 39,000 gas turbines that are installed. In fact, we would say that there's 39,249, and that represents about 1,665 gigawatts of gas turbines that are deployed or installed. Now, this particular chart, you can see these are what I call a donut chart. It shows on the inner ring, you can see how units are distributed by technology, and on the outside ring, how megawatts are distributed by technology, or gigawatts. So on the inside circle, you can see that 21% of all gas turbines deployed are aeroderivative technology gas turbines, but only 12% of the gigawatts installed are aeroderivative. And probably one of the more interesting things that I think very few people understand or have recognized, that while only 5% of the gigawatts deployed are light industrial gas turbines, a whopping 43% of the number of units deployed are light industrial gas turbines. Now, why is that important? It's important because if you're serving the aftermarket, so if you're providing either products or services or some combination, serving the aftermarket for the deployed fleet, it's important to know how many units are deployed, not how many gigawatts are deployed, because every incremental gigawatt doesn't necessarily represent an incremental opportunity if you're serving the aftermarket to provide either a product or service. But every single unit deployed represents an opportunity. So I always try to explain the marketplace both from a size in gigawatts and a size in terms of units deployed, because I think the units deployed is a much more important number. Now we're going to move on from how the fleet is deployed by technology to how it's deployed by OEM. And again, I'm representing the data in a very similar fashion. The inside circle represents units deployed, and the outside circle represents gigawatts deployed. And it shows who the players are from an OEM perspective. And as you can see, on a gigawatts perspective, a full 52% of all gigawatts deployed are manufactured by General Electric, or the combination of General Electric and the Baker Hughes, which was formerly part of the General Electric company. I don't separate those out for simplicity's sake because it's very similar or identical technology, so I call that General Electric technology. So here's another example of why it's important to understand the dichotomy between units and gigawatts, because you can see that a full 39% of all gas turbines deployed on a unit basis are manufactured and deployed by Solar Gas Turbine Company, which is of course a division of the Caterpillar company, but only 4% of all gigawatts. So if you were only looking at megawatts, you would completely miss the fact that solar is a huge entity in terms of the number of units that are deployed. And you can see that there's very respectable shares by Siemens and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Saldo, the Italian company. And we also track Russian units in all of our data as well, by the way. I'm going to switch over now to some trends. Now, I have to explain the chart before I talk about the data. So I think it's always important to understand that looking at the industrial gas turbine market from one year to the next is a very deceiving way of looking at it, because we know that, and this is even more important probably in the oil and gas sector, that you could have very few orders for a particular OEM in 1 year, and only 1 year and 1 day later, on January 1st, a large order come in, and suddenly it would provide a very deceiving perspective of the marketplace, because that one order, only 1 day late on January 1st versus December 31st, could significantly change the perspective of what's happening in the marketplace. So what I've actually done here is I've shared the way that the market is split up by unit size range for the two different sectors, oil and gas on the upper and electric power utility on the lower. But it looks at the total units deployed for the previous 7 years. In other words, from the years 2006 through 2012, and the last 7 years, 2013 versus 2019. And that gives a much more realistic view of how the marketplace has changed in terms of how units are being ordered. And you can see, of course, by the size of the bars, which are the more popular, and you can see that the sized units between 20 and 30 megawatts in size and 30 and 40 are very popular units. And that's even held true from the previous 7 years over to the last 7 years. But if you look over on the far right-hand column, you can actually see the net change, the previous versus the last 7 years. And you can see that virtually every sized gas turbine in the oil and gas market has had a fairly dramatic change in the percent of orders by sized unit. So for example, in the 1 to 2 megawatt range, that market from the previous 7 years to the last 7 years is down 75%. That's a very telling story. And very similarly, the 2 to 5 megawatt size. So small gas turbines really, from 1 to 10 megawatts, have really taken a beating in the oil and gas market. And that same information is true in the electric power utility segment down below. In fact, it's even more dramatic. So for gas turbines between 1 and 15 megawatts, you can see very dramatic shifts, negative shifts, minus 95, minus 83, minus 70, minus 56, minus 75, huge changes in the marketplace for small gas turbines. But you can see some other rather interesting differences in the electric power utility in terms of growth. So you see that gas turbines sized between 30 and 40 megawatts have grown 44%. And gas turbines that are 300 megawatts, what I call very much jumbo-sized units, have grown a whopping 412%. So how do we explain this? So it's my belief or my theory that for renewable offset, and I'll explain more about renewable offset, we're going to see a market over the coming years in gas turbines in that 30 to 100 megawatt segment to provide what I call renewable offset. And we're going to continue to see very large jumbo-sized units used for what I would call coal and nuclear offset, because we all know that the coal market is dying or nearly dead, or if not completely dead. And there's going to be almost no new nuclear or coal plants, probably no new nuclear plants, and a lot of retirements. And something's got to soak up that space. And I believe a large share of it's going to be these large units. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and how and the renewables in the coming charts. So why are renewables becoming more popular? I can tell you it's all coming down to cost. I mean, if you look back many years ago, the levelized cost of electricity for renewables was really, really high. And it's just continued to drop significantly. And so what you actually see here is represented by the bars is the levelized cost of electricity for installing and operating a combined cycle industrial gas turbine, a simple cycle gas turbine, onshore wind, and solar. And I'm even showing you what the cost of solar is and wind is with tax subsidies. Because a lot of people think, well, renewables are only good because the government provides tax subsidies. That's actually not true. It does help, but you can see both today or as of 2017 and even into the future in 2040, renewables with and without subsidies are going to be very, very competitive against gas turbines. Now, why are these shown in bars instead of dots? I'm showing the bars because the fact of the matter is, depending on where you locate and specifically what technologies you use, there's a wide range of levelized cost of electricity for renewables, and for that matter, even industrial gas turbines. But it's very possible, as this chart shows, that renewables can be very, very price competitive, and it's only going to become more price competitive as time rolls on.
Okay, so, Anthony.
Yes, sir.
We only have like a couple more minutes left.
Oh,
so
well, I'm gonna speed up then.
Cool. Got a couple more minutes. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just show that basically, if a lot of people look at the solar market and they say, well, you know, we see these large plants and these large announcements. How can gas turbines compete with that? Well, the truth of the matter is there's 3,300 solar plants across the United States, and the average size is only 9 megawatts. So gas turbines do have a role to play in offsetting those low capacity and availability solar plants. And likewise, on wind farms, the average size is only 72 megawatts. So, and another factor that has to be considered is battery technology. Battery technology is growing, and there's little doubt about it. You can see the chart on the top left that the deployment of batteries is going to grow and the price is going to go down. It's a matter of fact, but it's going to take a while. And so I believe that gas turbines will continue to play a strong role, even despite the fact that battery technology will help provide some offset. So I'm going to summarize quickly. The industrial market, less than 10 megawatts and even under 20 megawatts is not good, and it's getting worse. Aeroderivative technology will continue to have a strong play in the oil and gas sector, and I believe they'll be strong in supporting renewable offsets. Large gas turbines will continue to play a large role in what I call coal and nuclear offsets. And renewables and battery deployment will put the pressure on the industrial gas turbine market, though not as strongly as some would suggest. And that's the end of my presentation.